Okay, I want to welcome everybody today to our webinar, Overcoming the Nasty 9 Profit Leaks. And we're going to wait a moment as we have people join. I see we got some people joining right now. Just to make sure you can hear me, could you just go ahead and send me a quick message on that, if you hear me okay? Just hit okay, give that to me, that would be great. Okay, I see that. Robert, thank you. Bill, thank you. Okay, good. And we have a few other people joining. So let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining the webinar today. I'm coming to you based on the experience we have working with business owners like you for the last 30 years. We work with thousands of businesses. We found over the years that there's some common things that go wrong, or areas we can really leverage to go right with small business owners. And this is the nasty 9 that we're talking about. So without anything further, let's go ahead and jump into the slides here and get started to get you the information that you're looking for. Okay, so I'm just going to get my slides set up here, so I apologize for the hold up here. So let's look at the first thing here we want to look at. So remember, these are the nasty 9 most common things. And we focused on these because these are where all the money is. We go in and do consulting. We're a CPA firm, but we also do a lot of business consulting and profitability consulting for business owners. And over the years, we've come up with these 9 areas that are where all the money is, right? So all these areas are going to be areas in your business where you can look to really increase profits, and not small stuff. Because what we found over time is that a lot of companies focus on what we call counting pencils, and that's looking at things that really don't matter. Trying to cut expenses on utilities and cut expenses here and there around the edges. And I'm not saying that's bad, but that's really not where the real money is. We found that these 9 areas are where people really find breakthrough in their businesses. And most businesses are spending it, are wasting really at least hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in these areas. It's been proven time and time again through our consulting. So without anything further, let's hop right into the first one here. That's going to be, number 1 is you don't measure real profits. Typically, I'll ask a business owner what their profits are, and they'll throw out a number. But that doesn't really mean a whole lot in and of itself. You've got to look to see, okay, what makes up that profit? And one of the things that we look at is to see how much is the owner getting paid for what they do. So let's start with, what were your profits last year? Let's start with that number. And then what we want to add, let's just say the profits were $100,000, just use a round number. Then what we have to do is go back and we'll look to see, okay, how much did you make? How much was your salary? How much was your bonus? And compare that to what you made before. What's the value of your labor? Because your labor is worth something. So if you had profits of $100,000 and you paid yourself $50,000 during that year that came out of the business, right? But you left the job where you were making $200,000. I wouldn't say that you really had profits of $100,000, because the way you should really measure things is you really wouldn't have any profits until the company can first pay you the value of your labor. So until you took $200,000 of salary, until the company was to that level, there would be no profits. So before your salary, if the company had made $500,000 and you took $200,000, I would say the real profits of the business are $300,000. But a lot of owners aren't looking at it that way, and they're really kind of fooling themselves, because you got to think about what is your worth out there in the open market, and pay yourself accordingly. And that business should pay you a good benefits package as well. Retirement plan, 401k, all that type of thing. And then after all that's been paid and all your people are paid, then we look at profits. So as I just said, you got to look to see what's the value of their labor. What are you doing, and what would somebody pay you outside for that? So first thing you want to look at is that what are the real profits? Because a lot of people don't measure the right thing. Then we want to look at what we call out of control jobs or job overruns, cost overruns, because this is where the money is really made and lost. Depending on your type of business, it's out on the individual jobs or individual processes. Because a bad job can, depending on what type of business you're in, it could be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. And there's this is a real area where there's lots of money, because if you think about it, payroll is by far your biggest cost. If you compare everything else to it, a lot of businesses, payroll is 80% of their costs. So we need to think about that, to think about how we're spending that money. And if you look at the time you're going to spend here, let's say you're going to spend an hour on this webinar, think through for a minute. What's the investment in payroll that you're making in your operation right now, just during that 1 hour? What does 1 hour cost you in payroll? So add everybody's salary up or their hourly rate, and it's good to figure that out, to think, okay, how much you're investing every hour. And it's really important now. You're hoping right now, as you're on this webinar, as I am here too, that my people are doing a good job and doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. And there's some procedures that you should put in place, or some ways to make sure you're maximizing that investment. And that's one of the things that we would take a look at first, because we look at payroll because that's where the money is. And we don't look at payroll from the sense of, oh, let's cut salaries, let's cut people out of here. That's really not, that's like the wrong end of the pig here. We want to get on the right end of the pig and be looking at, hey, how can we maximize our investment? How can we set up a situation where people can win, where we can make people more effective at what they do? So also I'm going to talk about what in your business does a bad job look like. Because when somebody has a bad job, it can really be completely upside down. We've got somebody I was talking to last week. They do websites, really nice websites that cost a few $100,000. And let's say on a $300,000 website, if things go poorly, they could go over $100,000 or $150,000 over in costs. And that's a huge problem. How many more jobs do they have to make up for that? It's just really a problem. And you got to think about that in your business too. What exactly does a bad job look like? Whether you're guys working on cars or whatever you might be doing, what does a bad job or bad customer situation look like? And this leads us right to number 3, which is people management. How are we looking at people? Because once again, people are our most costly investment that we make. First thing we want to look at is, are all your people pulling in the same direction? You'd be surprised how often that's not the case. Do you people know what a good day looks like? Most people don't, and you need to. That's where there's a lot of opportunity there, because as you looked at that number earlier as to how much payroll you're investing per hour in your people, it's important that you put systems in place so you can maximize that as much as possible, because that's where a lot of money goes down the toilet. And not that people are trying to do a bad job. In a lot of situations, maybe you haven't set up a situation where people know what direction we're going in. It might be completely obvious to you, but in a lot of situations that we see, people don't know what direction they're pulling in. They don't know what a good day looks like. If I'm producing widgets, is a good day 8 widgets or 28-bit widgets? A lot of companies, people don't know that on the front line, and that is a real problem. We've got to change the game so people understand how they can win. Another thing you want to look at is to see the engagement of your people, because there have been some recent studies that show that a lot of people are not only not engaged, they could even be actively actively disengaged, meaning they're pulling in the wrong direction, completely opposite direction as to where you want to go. And if you can imagine, you have one person within a small team of 6 people who is pulling in the wrong direction, that's going to be a problem. And that's not a problem of $1,000 a year or $2,000 a year. Think about it. You've got the money that you're paying that person, plus you got all the wasted time within that team. So that could easily be $100,000 or more. So you want to really get a handle on your people and what they're doing and what direction they're pulling in. Now, this is when I say this, a lot of people are going to think, "Oh my gosh, I've heard this before," because I would bet most people listening to this webinar don't have a written vision, mission, and values. I mean written. And you think, well, this is just for big companies. That is a lot of nonsense. I would encourage you to have the discipline to write these things down, because when you not only write them down, do your people know them? Your people need to know this is what direction we're going in. If people don't know where we're heading, you know what? We're certainly probably not going to get there. And if we do get there, it's not going to be easy. We all have to be pulling in the right direction. So I recommend you spend the time to get these things written down. What are your company values? What's your mission? What's your vision? And get your leadership team involved to help you put together a document, not long, short, 1 page, maybe 2, but hopefully get that all on 1 page. And make sure your people know it. Make sure your people know it. One of my friends has got a business, and he does a great job at this. And his vision is be a blessing. And everybody knows that's what they're all about. They're all about being a blessing today. It's easy, simple. I love it. Everybody can understand what it is, and everyone in the company knows what that is and what that means. So I encourage you not to be thinking this is for big companies. This is for you, and this can really help you get a better return on your investment. You got to always remember payroll is the biggest investment that you're making every day, every month, every year. You should spend some time to really get the biggest return on that investment. Your people is where the money's at. It's not if you're going to go buy a new truck to put on the road. You're going to beat the heck out of that deal probably. You try to get the best deal, or somebody in your team is going to try to get the best deal. Go between one dealer and another to try to get a good deal, and that might be worthwhile. But how much more worthwhile is spending time here trying to maximize this kind of investment? You look at an investment that you might be making millions of dollars a year versus a truck where maybe that's $30,000 or $40,000. Sometimes we're misplaced as far as our resources. And that's why we focus on this, because to be quite honest with you, when the clients bring us in to help them in their business to be more profitable, we want to look to see where the money is. And this is where the money is. I can't say this strongly enough. I just really recommend you take a look at some of these things. So let's go to the next thing. Once again, we talked a little bit about this. What does a good day look like? This is these guys are playing basketball on this this slide here. And I like to look at it. I like to think about it like playing horse. Like if a group of us are playing horse, if you know what that is, a little basketball game where you shoot. If we're just shooting around, right, just goofing off, nobody's really paying attention. But if all of a sudden there's 4 of us in a group, right, we're standing out on a playground somewhere with a hoop, and all of a sudden somebody asks, "Hey, let's play horse?" All of a sudden we're competing, even though it's not a big deal. I'm not a professional basketball player or basketball shooter or anything like that. But all of a sudden the competition would go. We'd all of a sudden start to pay attention, because I don't want you to do better than me. And hey, if you can make that, I can make it too. Like, so there's this healthy competition that goes along with when you keep score. And keeping score, especially your frontline people, they need to be keeping score every day. They need to know what a good day is. Like I said earlier, is a good day producing 8 or 28 items? They need to know that, and they need to know how do they do today. That's really important to help people, because most people want to do a good job. But in so many situations, I see that they don't know what a good job actually is. They think they do, and the owner thinks they do. But a lot of times they don't. Um, Another question here is, how often do your teams have meaningful meetings? There's two parts to this. Do you get your teams together? Let's say you have 6 teams in your company. Are they getting together on a regular basis? Is that weekly? Is that monthly? We recommend that teams get together weekly, but not just to get together. The other piece of it is to have meaningful meetings. It's got to pass the SW test. The SW test is so what? So many meetings are completely wasted. A lot of wasted time, not a lot of good things take place. But if you have a meeting with a purpose and have a tight agenda and have cooperation and talk about what's going on, it can really be helpful to create more of a team environment rather than just everybody looking out for themselves. And if you really want to get your company cooking, that's what you want to have. You want to have everybody pulling in the same direction, everybody on the same team. I can tell you though, there's lots of opportunities here where we were producing here and you can really increase what you're producing. I mean, like 30, 40, 50, 60% with the same team, but it takes some time. It takes some investment and it takes some time. This doesn't change like that. It takes probably 6 to 12 months, maybe even 6 to 18 months to really get a team cooking. And you'll see some results before that, but it does take time, but it will produce fantastic improvements in profits. And that's what we're talking about here. Remember, we're talking about ways to improve your profits, stay away from these nasty 9 things that people tend to have problems with in their business. Now, as we're talking more and more about people, we like assessments that are independent assessments like Strength Finder. That's what we're going to talk about here. Strength Finder is a great assessment. It's very inexpensive. I think it's about $20 per person. It's online, takes them, maybe 5 or 10 minutes to fill out. And what comes out of there is a report that's going to tell you their strengths. And it's an excellent tool. We highly recommend it. And not only do we recommend it, then we also recommend within a team, if you have a small team and each one of your teams talks with each other, each person talks about their own Strengths Finder. See, hey, what rings true, what doesn't ring true for them. But that's important as a leader to know what people's strengths are. And once again, some people are going to hear this and think, oh my gosh, this is like a big HR thing for big companies. No, this is large companies, small companies. This is important. Remember, payroll is your biggest investment. Let's make sure we're doing all that we can to maximize it. And even beyond that, it's the right thing to do. We want to treat people well, and you want to help them do well. That is good for them, and it's good for the company. All the things we're talking about here today on this people side of it are things that are going to be good for your team members and also good for the company. We're investing in people, helping them do a good job. So Strengths Finder is a really great one. I'd highly recommend. We also have one that we use called the Kolbe, Kolbe. People don't use this as much, but this is an excellent one as well. This is an assessment. I think it's around $40 last time I checked. And it'll give you an assessment as to how people, what their motivations are and how they work. It gives a 4-number score. And once again, it's a short thing. It doesn't take very much time. You can do it online. It's excellent to learn more and more about the people on your team. Because not only do we want to know about them, we want to know about all the members on the team and how they can best work together. And as a leader, I recommend that you take these right out of the chute, so you can get an idea of what these are, what they look like. So Kolbe is a good one as well. And then the last one we're going to talk about here is going to be the DISC profile. This has been around for a long time. DISC, it's called, relatively inexpensive as well. I think it's around $30. Once again, it tells you a little bit about how the person ticks. It's very good. For the little bit of cost of these things, you could run somebody through all 3 of these for $100 probably, or maybe even less than that. It gives you a really good idea as to what they're about, and also how you can work with them better. And like I said, I'd really encourage you to make these investments. They're small dollars on a relative basis, and it's important because we're in such a great economy right now, it's hard to find good people and it's hard to keep good people. So not only, but when you're doing these things, you know what you're doing with your people, not only are you getting information from them so you can do a better job with them and they can do a better job, you're also telling them, hey, you know what, you matter. We care about you. We're paying attention to you. So it's another benefit that what we call you're showing them the love, you know, and that is really important for your team. So that talks about, that's enough of the third item there. We're going to move on to number 4, which is sales process problems. This is a big area as well. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, and this is whether you're the only salesperson or you have 100 salespeople out in the field. This issue is important. Do you have a written sales process? I ask that because most people don't, you know, and that's really the place to start. I wouldn't do anything until you have a written sales process. It doesn't make sense to spend any money on even marketing or sales, I would say, or hiring additional people until you get a written sales process. If you look at all of the best sales organizations in the world, they all have written sales processes, how we go about doing it. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Oftentimes there's role playing involved in that, but first you want to have a written sales process. Here's how we go about doing that. It is so important. My recommendation is don't do anything in the area of sales at all. Don't go get sales training. Don't do anything else until you've got a written sales process that you like. And here's the reason. So many of us think, hey, we're just one sales manager or salesperson away from real success. Because, and here's the thing, there's a lot of people out there that want to sell you this magic bullet. We've been in business here about 28 years, and you and I are probably very much alike. We want this magic bullet, and there's a lot of people who say they can sell it to us, but the reality of it is there is no magic bullet out there. And the problem I see a lot of times is people don't have a written sales process. They go ahead and hire a couple salespeople, maybe 3 or 4 salespeople, and then they want to hire, then they've got some problems with them, and then they realize, oh my gosh, I need to get a sales manager. And they either they elevate their best salesperson, which is probably not a good idea because they're taking them out of sales, and who knows if they're going to be a good manager or not. Or they go out and spend a ton of money on somebody they think is going to be a successful sales manager, but they don't set the situation up for success, or they don't set the people up for success because they think, hey, if I just get that magic bullet, just get the right person, the right salesperson, the right sales manager, that's going to turn everything around. And experience has shown that's just not, that's a high risk situation. More often than not, those hires do not work. They're very expensive. You know, somebody comes in, you spend a lot of money on them, you spend a lot of time with them. They're there for a year. Things don't work out. It's definitely not ideal. How are your salespeople held accountable? Do you have sales meetings? Are they every week, every month? What does your sales meeting look like? Have you had somebody else take a look at your sales meeting? Because one thing about salespeople that we need to know is that they need to be managed. That's important. They really need to be managed. And the best way I know how to do it, looking at all different types of companies over the years, is to have a weekly, this is whether you're selling a $10 million item or whether you're selling a $1,000 item, have weekly meetings with your salespeople to see and have them report on what's going on. You know, how they've implemented the sales process. See, this is where the sales process drives the accountability as well. To see, okay, well, how many calls were made, and whatever a call looks like in your situation, how many leads were handled, and then how did they walk them, where are they at as far as walking them through that process. And the key is to hold your salespeople accountable. That's how they're going to do well, right? It's not like I want you to be beating on them, saying more and more and more. No, but we want to help them have success. So holding your salespeople accountable, that's really important. We recommend weekly meetings with all your salespeople, whether that's on a video call or in person, however it might be. And during that meeting, make sure you have a form that they fill out, some type of form, whether it's online or paper form. Because if you just sit there and let them talk, salespeople are great talkers, right? You need to find out, you need to get data. You want data every week. You want the data that you want. You want everybody to fill it out exactly the same way. So you provide the form and require them to fill it out every week, however you want to do it. That way it's easier for you to manage. It's a little more difficult for people to kind of like wiggle out of it, make it seem like they're doing something when maybe they're not. Because you don't want to give salespeople too much rope to hang themselves. That's a real problem. The next, number 5 here on these nasty 9s is marketing confusion. And what I mean by that is different messages and not having a cohesive marketing strategy. Think about the marketing that you all do. Think about all the different types of marketing that's out there. You know, there's old style brochures, there's your logo, branding, there's the way your trucks look, you know, the wrap you have on your truck, or the sign, you know, whether you have a sign in front of your business, or whether you have a billboard that you put up, or television advertising, online marketing. You've got a lot of different things going on. And oftentimes when you take a look, there's not a cohesive message, there's confusion. And when that's the case, you're wasting money with whoever you're using for your marketing, whether you have an internal marketing team, right? Or whether you're subbing this out to an agency, or wherever you're spending the money. It's money wasted. And remember, marketing people love marketing, right? So they're probably not going to tell you you're doing some of this stuff wrong, or we could be doing better. They just want to keep hitting all different types of things, and sometimes that creates a lot of confusion. So one of the things that we recommend is what we call a marketing audit. This is where you take a look at all of your marketing communications. We effectively lay them down next to each other. All your email campaigns, all of your LinkedIn, all of your ads, all of how your trucks look, signs, letterhead, TV, anything you can direct mail. And we take a look at that, and we put those all side by side with an independent person, and try to help elicit from them what is the marketing message, right? And then get some feedback on all those. And let's find out first, what do they think the marketing message is? And then we compare that to what your company, you think your marketing message is. And the key with the marketing audit, we look at everything. Even if you still do Yellow Pages ads, we will look at that as well. We want to look at everything, because remember, we want to maximize our investment on marketing. It's really important, really important. And a big area here is digital marketing. Obviously, everything has gone that way in the last few years, but it's amazing how many people really are not focused on that. A lot of times I hear from people, well, you know, my business is mostly referral. Well, that's great, but anybody who's referred to you these days, the first thing they're going to do is go look at your website to see if your digital presence lines up with how you were referred. And if something is out of kilter here, if you were referred at this level, you know, you guys do a great job in whatever business it is, and your quality and that type of thing, but your website kind of is down here, that gap is a problem. That gap is a problem. So no matter where you get your business from, having an updated, once again, cohesive, doesn't have to be really expensive or elaborate, but it needs to be customer oriented and focused on your key marketing messages. So digital marketing is really important now. Websites are just one part of that. You also have all the different, you know, social media, and you have email. But once again, a marketing audit will look at all of those things, because remember, we want to eliminate market confusion. We want to just have the same message over and over again. We don't want to give confusion with 2 or 3 different messages. That's problematic. The next thing we look at is who's your competition? it's amazing how many people don't really look at the competition, don't really think about that. But it's one place you really need to take a look at that to see what's your competition and what are they doing. If you're, let's say, a physical therapy office, let's look to see, let's say you're a small chain of physical therapy offices. Let's see in those markets what other providers of physical therapy are there. Let's start to do some investigation on those as well, get some research, what they would call market research. Most small to mid-sized businesses don't really do that. Let's take a look at their websites. Let's take a look at their material. Let's see where they're at to see how you can be different. Because remember, with marketing, there's only three things you're going to need to be typically faster, better, or cheaper, right? And let's figure out where do you fit in that. And where you fit today might be substantially different than where you fit 5 years ago. It's important to take a look at overall your competition, and things have just changed geographically as well. Digital age has really made a lot of businesses made them able to operate in many other markets. You want to think about that for your own business as well, but also look at for your competitors. Who's coming in? Think about how often. The other day I was looking up a body shop just on Google. Right, and it was amazing how I realized there's all these services. And they were like these national companies that wanted me to call them, and then they would put me in touch with a local person. That totally has changed. That never was the case before. You should go to the Yellow Pages or see somebody's office, a shop, and you would call them off their sign to see and shop them that way. But the things have really changed substantially. So let's take a look at our competition, take a look at our customers. And really get in our customer's head too, because we want to understand, we want to be speaking their language, not just market. We don't want to have market confusion, but also we want to make sure that we're not confusing the customer and we're speaking in their language, giving them exactly what they want, which we find so often is sometimes not what you think they want. And now we go to the sixth of the nasty nine here, and that is no tax planning. Taxes are a big thing in our culture. Between state and federal taxes, you could be paying 40 or even up to 50% of your income in taxes. So it's an important thing to take a look at. If you ignore it, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just easy money if you get some things right. You don't have to sell anything additional. You don't have to make any more profit if you're able to save some taxes. That's important. So first thing is, are you maximizing your own compensation? Are you using all the things that are available to you, not just salary? If you're an S corporation, like I'm sure a lot of companies are, you got to look to see, hey, how much am I taking payroll versus distributions? Am I utilizing distributions or maximizing distributions? Because you can save substantial taxes doing that. And it amazes me how often people don't do it. I talked to another friend of mine a few weeks ago who was with another accounting firm, and they were an S corporation. And one of the big reasons to be an S corporation is to be able to take some distributions. And he'd been an S corporation for some time. And when we looked into it, we realized he was not even aware that he could take distributions, and he had taken 0 distributions for a couple of years. And that didn't make any sense. There's really no reason to have the S corporation if you weren't going to save some taxes, right? So be thinking about that. Be asking your CPA firm about that. And really, they should be bringing you some ideas too. They should be focused on saving taxes, not just prepping taxes. Old school was people would just prepare tax returns. You kind of slide this stuff kind of under the door, and weeks later, there'd be after a big old black box process that took place, you would get your final numbers, and you don't know how you got there or what happened. But that's not acceptable anymore. You really need to be doing tax planning around the year, especially if you're a business owner, because taxes are really, really high. By the time you look at payroll taxes, federal and state taxes are high. So we want to look to see to maximize your own compensation, after-tax compensation. Things like HSAs, are you using those? Because HSAs can be a an additional retirement plan? Are you putting money into your own retirement plan? Are you maximizing it? Are you doing a 401k? Those are some. How are you handling your automobile? You know, there are a lot of things you can do. You know, do you have an office in the home? Do you have a computer set up in the home? Are those things being written off? These things tend to add up. One thing typically isn't just this giant number, but you can add things together and they can really show you some substantial savings if you take the time to think it through. So my point is, if you've just been going on autopilot for a long time, just doing the way you've always done things without any like new ideas from your CPA firm, it might be time to really rethink that because taxes have really changed, especially in the last couple of years. So it's important to take a look at that to make sure you're maximizing your owner compensation. Another thing you want to do on the tax side, as far as tax planning, is to look to see about writing off purchase of equipment. Now you see here, this is a kind of a bulldozer type thing, but it doesn't have to be something like that. There are some special depreciation allowances that have taken place for automobiles as well. Whether that's a big SUV, there's a special rule for that that allows you to write off a good bit of that if it's used for business. But even regular passenger automobiles and any other equipment. I mean, you should know about how that works because you can get a big tax deduction now. And if you finance the vehicle or the bulldozer or whatever it might be, or a big dump truck, you know, $150,000 truck, you can take the deduction right now and pay for it later over the next, you know, 5, 6, 7 years. So it is a really important piece to your tax planning. And a lot of owners don't look at their own retirement. They fool themselves too often. A lot of people are thinking, well, I'm going to sell my business for a big number down the line. And maybe you do. But I found that that's a foolish strategy over time. That once you're out of the startup mode, you really need to be focused on maximizing your own retirement planning and the amount of money. What I mean is the amount of money you're putting in every year. And if you're not putting at least 25 to 50,000 away every year, you need to really be thinking about how am I going to get there? Because the question is, who's going to take care of you, right? You're not working for the government. You don't work for the government, so you're not going to get a big pension. Now, hey, you might sell your business. That's a possibility to make it big money for it. But I think putting all your eggs in that basket probably doesn't make sense. Don't put off this retirement planning. You know, if you got a business, I don't care what your age is, you need to be putting something away every month. It's important. It's important. For the first 10 years I had my practice, I did some things that maybe some of you all have done, where I would just keep looking for some kind of great month where a bunch of money came in, and I'd take that out of there, and then I'd dump that into my retirement plan. A lot of times after the end of the year, you know, and that worked to some extent. But I'll tell you, when I found religion and just said, hey, you know what, I'm just going to do this every month. I'm going to make it like a bill. It changed everything. And highly recommend that you take a look at that. Really think through how much you want to put into your retirement plan. And let's make the business be profitable enough so you can put the money away that you're going to need. Tax credits. There's a lot of tax credits that are out there that people don't really know about. And that's really, really important. One big one right now that's just been kind of liberalized in the last couple of years is the R&D, the Research and Development Tax Credit. That was put into play several years ago because what was happening is U.S. companies were outsourcing the research and development to other countries, India and cheaper countries rather. So what the government wanted to do, they want to put an incentive in to do the R&D here, okay? So probably when you're thinking research and development, maybe you're thinking about, you know, coming up with new drugs and things like that, and that certainly applies to that. But it's a lot more than that. And especially in the last couple of years, it's been really liberalized what can be done there. And I would say probably 2/3 of businesses out there have some kind of research and development function if you really think it through. And there's tax credits available. we just did one for an architect this past year, and they got over, and this is not a huge company, it's a small company, they do a couple $1 million in sales a year, and I think it was about $130,000 of R&D tax credits we got for them. That tax credit, that's cash money. If it's not a deduction, that's cash money that they were able to take home. So think about there's some other tax credits that are out there as well. So that's something, if you haven't heard about that, it's something to definitely think about. If you own a building, or if you're going to buy a building, you want to take a look at something called a cost segregation study. In a nutshell, what a cost segregation study does is it gives you a loophole around the general tax law of when you buy a building like the one you see here on the screen, that building is depreciated over 40 years, meaning you take 1/40th of it each year off of your taxes, 1/40th, a tiny bit, right? And that's just a general rule. But there are some special rules if you can take the components of the building, because when you bought that building, you also bought all kinds of, maybe had specialized electrical work to run computers or to run refrigeration units or anything like that. Plus you may have had a special air handler, or you can see right here, there was asphalt. Asphalt can be pulled out too. You can pull out some of those components, okay, and segregate the costs. But you can only do it if you do it in a certain engineered fashion. There's a certain way it has to be done. But just to give you some ideas, oftentimes you can write off, rather than 1/40th, okay, we've had situations where people can write off 1/3 of what they've spent on a building. Now really, they finance most of that building, right? So they're not even paying 1/3 up front, but they're able to write off 1/3 of it in the first year by doing a cost segregation study. So that's if you own two things. If you own a building, or if you have, also, I didn't mention this, but if you have a substantial lease and put a lot of leaseholds into a building, a cost segregation study can be helpful for that. We just did for lease for a large restaurant chain because they had a lot of special equipment that went in there and had to do the whole build out. When they rented the space, it was just four walls and a roof, and so they had to put all this money in. So a cost segregation study was used there, and it was a very big payoff for that as well. Now, the next thing that's problematic here is your personal net worth. People don't focus on that enough. They kind of roll through on that, and I think you need to look at your personal net worth as a three-legged stool. Your business value, remember we talked about that earlier, the hopes that you start the business, and hopefully you will, and hopefully you get a good number for it. But also I think you need to make sure you have stock market assets and real estate. And there's just like a methodology. I mean, a lot of business owners are just busy, doing, working. They don't step back and think about that. So I would recommend that you take a look at that. Now, before we go to the number 8, this is one that's very controversial. You are probably gonna wince when I tell you this, but I'm gonna tell you right now, this could be the number 1 key to helping your business do better in the years ahead. And that is, you're working too much. Your business will do better if you work less. That is, in most situations, that's an absolute, right? And it's totally counterintuitive. I think what you want to think about is, hey, how many hours are you actually working? Not just in the business, but at home. You know, you see this lady here is working from a computer at home. I would encourage you to get a number on that. How many hours a week are you working? That's important. And we put forth that 90% of business owners should be working less and taking much more time off. And I mean at least 4 weeks of vacation. Okay, I mean working less. Even less than 40 hours a week. Most owners are probably working closer to 60 hours a week and maybe getting a week or two of vacation. Because people don't feel like they can get away. The problem there is your business becomes too dependent on you, and there's not an opportunity for people in your business to step up, and there's not an opportunity for the business to run without you. If you're there all the time and they're coming saying, hey, Joe, I need help with this. Hey, Joe, I need that. that's not a good sign. And one of the big strategies we use with our clients right out of the get-go is looking at their schedule, trying to figure out, hey, how can we get them to work less and take more time off? Because when you take more time off, it's good for the business because the business will grow better. And it's good for you too because it frees up your creativity. When you're up against it, and you're just busting your hump every day, 6-7 days a week, your creativity is sapped. You know how it is. When you go away for a week or two of vacation, maybe you don't. Maybe you haven't done this in a while. But if you go away for a couple weeks vacation, it's amazing how you can get your head screwed on properly. It's amazing how you have a different perspective on the business and maybe some of the problems that you have. A side benefit to this is your family. You know, you get some time to spend with your kids and grandkids. Let's be honest, none of us are getting any younger. The time for this is now, not later. We always say, oh, I'll do it. I'll have more time at home with my spouse or with my kids at this point. Once this happens, once we get this big contract, once we get to this certain number of sales, we know we're kidding ourselves with that. You know, that day never comes. And you know, these key relationships are important. And it's important to get away. That's what I can tell you. It is, people rarely believe me, but we rarely have anybody, I don't know if we've ever had anybody who's gone back from doing this once they start this idea. And it's about a mindset. You know, we want to take a look. We see this lady here's on vacation. So let me run you through this. If you think about it, if you're going to go on vacation the end of the week, and today's Monday, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're either Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. Maybe you might do it one Wednesday, but you're going to make a list. And you're going to make a list that's tight and good, and it's comprehensive. It has everything on that list. Because you know what? You're out of here at the end of the week. Come hell or high water, that plane leaves, right? And then those last couple or 3 days before vacation, it's amazing what happens. You get all that stuff done, or you make decisions that somebody else is going to do it. You know, you delegate it or do it. You were just so absolutely effective in those last few days before vacation, because there's only a certain amount of time available, and that's one of the concepts that we use when we want to make your hours be less. We want you to be working less, and during that time, you're going to be a whole lot more effective because you're just going to work with the time that's available. And what you'll also have is a lot more time off to enjoy a lot of better things and recharge. It's really a fantastic way to do things. And now we come up to the ninth of the nasty 9, and that's doing the wrong work. If you're like most business owners, you are busy. But that doesn't mean you're working on the right things. A lot of people are really focused on things like efficiency and even productivity, and we say that's probably not where you want to be focused. You're always going to be busy. You need to be working on, but what are the right things? What are the right things that you want to be doing? We talk about effectiveness. If you've been doing your job for any period of time, and I would imagine most people on this webinar have been doing what they've been doing for some time and are successful at it. You should be able to come up with every day just maybe 3 things to do. That's it, just a big 3. It's effectiveness. If you're doing the right 3, you know, rather than doing 10 things today, what if you just did the right 3 and give somebody else the other 7? That'll give that person who's going to do the other 7, that'll let them raise up to do the things that they're good at, and let them grow a little bit. And you're really focused on the most important 3 things. It's really a simpler way of looking at things. And some of the things here today are probably a little counterintuitive. But I'm telling you, I think this might be the opportunity to think differently. All these 9 things, we're talking about thinking differently. You know, we're talking about profit leaks. We're not talking about, hey, people running out the back door with products. We're not talking about counting pencils. We're not talking about saving money on your saving 2% on your energy bill. That's not what we're talking about. We're trying to focus on the big areas. We're going to get what we like to call the most bang for your buck. And what I really mean there is the most bang for the time invested, right? So if you take note of these, and I think they can really help you in your business. We've worked with thousands of businesses before. These are the things that help for sure. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to Katie Addington, who handles all of our scheduling here, and her email is kaddington, that's KADDINGTON, @plack.com. That's Katie Addington at plack.com. Or you can go right to our website, plack.com, PLACK, and schedule a meeting there or get more information about what we're doing here. Thank you so much for joining us today. I wish your business the best. Have a great day.